Welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we are going to be talking about Drew Lock and the Seattle Seahawks and how they could surprise people in 2022. But before we hop into the content of today's video, if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and drop a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers, so if you guys are new, be sure to hit that button. But with all that being said, let's hop into the video about Drew Lock and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, before we get into the huge changes the Seahawks made for their franchise this offseason, I want to talk a little bit about their 2021 season and what kind of went wrong for them during the 2021 NFL season. Going into the year, there was already some rumors about Russell Wilson being a little bit unhappy with the Seattle Seahawks, maybe wanting a trade, but those things kind of dwindled off as we entered into training camp, got into the thick of the season. There wasn't too many Russ rumors as far as his unhappiness went that we heard earlier in the offseason, but it was definitely something to keep an eye on and something that kind of foreshadowed the future of what was to happen for Russ and the Seahawks. But really, as far as the team went, you could kind of tell that the Seattle Seahawks had a flawed roster going into the 2021 NFL season, and it's been like that the last couple of years. Russell Wilson has really had to kind of carry Seattle on his back if he was going to get this team to the playoffs, win a playoff game, and they really haven't been successful the last few seasons with that method. The Rams have gotten substantially better, the 49ers have gotten substantially better, and the Cardinals were even a pretty good team last year. So Seattle really had their work cut out for them if they were going to make a run in the 2021 NFL season. They started off the year 2-2 with a pretty solid win against the San Francisco 49ers, and then came to the turning point of their season when they were at home against the LA Rams, the eventual Super Bowl champions, and Russell Wilson had a huge injury to his thumb, basically tore a bunch of ligaments in his finger and was out for a few weeks, and Geno Smith stepped into the fold of things. He went 1-2 as a starter, but then Russell Wilson came back in week 10, but with that type of injury, usually out for a couple of months, and Russell Wilson only missed about a little bit under a month, so you could definitely tell early on he was not healthy. The Seahawks then fell 3 straight games to Green Bay, Arizona, and Washington, putting the record at 3-8, and at that point, their season was pretty much over. And as the Seahawks sat at 3-8, a lot of speculation began to start about Russell Wilson's future in Seattle, what they were going to do, if he was the right piece moving forward for this team, because it's really been a couple years now where they haven't been able to really get the success that they're used to. Because we forget with the Legion of Boom and when the Seahawks had a fantastic roster, they made 2 straight Super Bowls, they should have won 2 in a row. And since that game in 2014, they haven't even made it out of the divisional round, and have kind of struggled here and there to even make it out of the wild card round. So it's really been tough for the Seahawks since that roster has kind of diminished. And that was kind of the issue that the Seahawks were getting into as we got deeper into Russell Wilson's career. So with all that being in the back of the mind of the Seahawks organization, and Russell Wilson being a little bit unhappy with his time in Seattle, it was time for both of the sides to split up, and that's exactly what happened this offseason when the Denver Broncos traded 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, Noah Fant, Drew Lock, and Shelby Harris to Seattle for Russell Wilson and a 4th-round pick. At the time, Seahawks fans were devastated. Russell Wilson is probably their best player in franchise history, at least their most influential, I'd say, and I can definitely be upset with trading away your best player. That's definitely not an easy thing, especially at the quarterback position. But now looking in the rearview mirror, I think the Seahawks got a great haul for Russell Wilson, and it's really about how they continue to build this roster. When you have a quarterback that's making $30-40 million, you're kind of handicapped with what you can do with your roster. Now the Seahawks have a lot of cap room to be able to build an effective roster around their new quarterbacks, which we'll get into. But that was the first step of their offseason, was unloading Russell Wilson for a pretty large haul to the Denver Broncos. And really the key point about this video is who they got in return, and that was Drew Lock, who I believe has some pretty good potential. He came out of Missouri, was a 2nd-round pick for the Broncos a few years back. Hasn't really done too much in the NFL, but there have been glimpses, there has been moments where we see his great arm strength, where we see some good moments, his athleticism that we saw in college, which kind of piques the interest of some teams, and I think that's why the Seahawks were a little bit interested in Drew Lock being their starting quarterback this year. Most amount of games Drew Lock has played in a season was 13 back in 2020, the COVID year, where he completed 57% of his passes for about 3,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. And you can definitely see from those numbers, it wasn't a fantastic year. Drew Lock is kind of a gunslinger, meaning he's going to make a lot of risky throws, and that kind of equivalates to his 15 interceptions, but he's definitely going to have to get that down if he's going to be the Seahawks quarterback moving forward. Now, last year, he only played in 3 games because Teddy Bridgewater won the starting job for the Broncos. It was kind of a controversial thing. Many Broncos fans that I saw on Twitter and across the board didn't really want Teddy Bridgewater to be the quarterback. You kind of know what you're getting with Teddy. Drew Lock, you could have some mystery in there. You could have some off-script plays, some things that Teddy Bridgewater is not really capable of doing, but he only started 3 games. He went 0-3, had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So we don't really know exactly how Drew Lock progressed in year 3. But this year, I really do believe he's going to get a chance with the Seahawks. For starters, Pete Carroll believed that Drew Lock would have been the first quarterback taken in the 2022 NFL Draft. And this is a perfect segue into talking about what they did in the draft and who they're going to be surrounding Drew Lock with this season. So with their first pick, which was secured from the Broncos and Russell Wilson trade, they selected Charles Cross from Mississippi State. This was a really deep tackle class, and Charles Cross is a very solid player. He's going to slide in at left tackle, and he's going to help out an offensive line that has really struggled. And that goes to my next point, which was their 3rd round pick, Abraham Lucas out of Washington State. Now the Seahawks have 2 new tackles to pair in with their offensive line, which was ranked 25th in the NFL last year, according to Pro Football Focus. So what many saw as a weakness for the Seattle Seahawks can definitely take a step in the right direction this year with some new talent on that offensive line. And with their 2nd pick in the draft, they took Kenneth Walker out of Michigan State. And I believe that the Seahawks have one of the deepest running back rooms in the entire NFL. They have Rashad Penny at running back 1, Kenneth Walker as their 2nd running back, and then their 3rd string running back, they have Chris Carson, who has dealt with some serious neck injuries. I don't know how much he's going to contribute, but even if he's in a limited role, the Seahawks have 3 very solid running backs. I thought Kenneth Walker was probably a top 3 back in this draft, so having him now with 2 experienced veterans is going to be really solid for the Seahawks. They're going to be able to rely on that running game and not have their quarterback have to throw the ball 30-40 times a game to secure a win. And then some other pieces on the offensive side of the ball that we tend to forget due to all of the changes that the Seahawks made on their roster this year was their insane receiving core. They have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, one of the better duos in the NFL as far as receiver goes. And for tight end, they did acquire Noah Fant, and they have Will Dissly as their backup tight end. Those are 4 really good targets for Drew Lock. So now he has a good backfield, he can rely on the running game, and he has some great weapons on the outside. Pair that with 2 new tackles, and you have a lot of solid talent on offense. And I really do think the Seahawks can be a solid team on the offensive side of the ball, probably top half of the league, depending on what step Drew Lock can take in his development in year 4. And now it's time to talk about their defense, which has really struggled the last few years. They've really went from the Legion of Boom to kind of one of the weaker defenses in the league the last few years. The Seahawks get criticized often for their trade for Jamal Adams, which hasn't really worked out a ton. Adams hasn't been as good as advertised. So hopefully this year with his big contract, Adams can excel back into that role and be one of the top guys in the league. But Russell Wilson wasn't the only cornerstone piece of the Seahawks franchise that was removed from the team this offseason. The Seahawks released Bobby Wagner, their cornerstone middle linebacker who has been there for ages. He was a part of the Legion of Boom and been one of the best linebackers in the league and one of the better players at the position we've seen ever play in the league. The Seahawks are really comfortable with Jordan Brooks. They think he had a fantastic rookie season, and he's going to be able to take in that role of Bobby Wagner and maybe excel to a similar player as Wagner. I know that's a hefty expectation, but Jordan Brooks was very, very solid as a rookie. And if he can continue to develop, I really do believe he can be a special player for the Seahawks in the middle of their defense. But the 2 major additions for the Seahawks this offseason was for their pass rush. The Seahawks brought in former Chargers linebacker Uchenna Nwosu to a 2-year, $20 million deal with $10.5 million guaranteed. And Nwosu had 5 sacks last year. He's a pretty solid pass rusher. He's still young. He's still excelling and getting better. He's not going to enter that Pete Carroll system, and maybe they can even get more out of him as he enters his 3rd year in the NFL. And the only premium pick I have not talked about for the Seahawks in the 2022 NFL Draft yet was their 2nd round pick, Boye Mafe, the outside linebacker from Minnesota. He will also step in and provide some great pass rush for the Seahawks, which has really struggled the last couple of years, and you can really see that they were trying to address that this offseason. So with all these new additions and all these new moves, what does this really mean for the Seahawks this upcoming season? I don't think the Seahawks are going to be a playoff team in 2022. I think this is kind of a progression year for them, seeing if they have the right quarterback, seeing what players can fit in their system and be solid contributors down the line. But I still do believe the Seahawks can be a solid team, maybe 7-8 wins. And I also do believe that there is a chance that Drew Lock can really surprise people this year and be a very solid quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks this year and in the future. The measurables with Lock has never been the question. It's really been about his processing and just taking care of the ball. With all of the weapons that he has now in the backfield and out wide, if the Seahawks can coach him up a bit, put him in a good system, I really do believe Drew Lock, if given the opportunity, can be a very solid quarterback in the league. And I really do think he's the key for the Seahawks' success in 2022. But But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and drop a like on the video if you guys do enjoy it. Let me know what you think of Drew Lock and if he's going to have a good year for the Seahawks. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.